Okay, the first question said complete the square and identify the vertex. I did ask you to be able to complete the square at least once. So I don't really care which one you did this on. But you needed to get to this point. Ah, there we go. And then over here, however you found the vertex, I didn't really care, as long as you have a vertex of -6 and 3. No, not -3, dummy head. And that's worth 1 mark each, because you only had to do one thing to find it. You either had to do -b over 2a and sub, or you had to do completing the square. So there was one skill involved in each of them. Anybody want to ask about either one of them? At some point or another yesterday, just about everybody asked about one of them. So nobody should need to ask about them now. But if you do, I'm willing to go over it. Awesome. Possums. Graph each equation. These are also only going to be worth 1. This graph has a vertex at +4, -3. It opens downwards because it's negative, and it's got no a value, so it's normal. Over 1, down 1, over 2, down 1, 2, 3, 4. So it needs to look like that for 1 mark. Over here, it's at -3, 0. Again, no stretch. Over 1, up 1. Over 2, up 4. Sim sim salabim for 1 mark. Any questions there? Once, twice, thrice. All right. These ones are going to be worth 2 marks each, because you had to tell me if it was a maximum or a minimum. And they were not in vertex form. So this first guy here, y equals 2, I lie, y equals 2x, x minus 3. How are you going to graph that? Well, you have the roots right there, because the roots are at x comma 0. So if I make that y 0, 2x and x minus 3. Then x had to be 0 or 3. So you've got a root at 3 and a root at 0. Vertex has to be halfway between them. So the vertex x value was 1.5 or 3/2. And once you subbed that in, you found out that the vertex y value was -4.5. So you went out to 1.5 and down to 4.5. And since everything's positive, it's that kind of parabola. So it is a minimum at 1.5, -4.5. And you needed all that, the graph, and the proper. At least you needed to say the minimum was at -4.5 to get the whole 2 marks. Come over here. The roots are +1. My computer is frozen. The roots are +1 and +6, which means the middle, the vertex x value is 1 and 6 is 5, divided by 2 is 2.5. 3.5. 1 plus 6 is 7, divided by 2 is 3.5. So your vertex x was 3.5. You sub that in up there to get the vertex y value of 2.5 times negative 2.5, which is negative 6.25. So your minimum, since everything is positive there, it was a minimum at negative 6.25. I just did that all in my head. Is that right? 2.5, negative 2.5. Yes, that is all correct. Making that page out of 8, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you weren't here at the beginning, you can catch up and mark it over the weekend on YouTube. I wanted vertex form of each parabola. I'm going to give you 2 marks for each of these, I think, because you had to know what vertex form was and you had to do some kind of math to find all of it. First one gets you an easy 2 marks, though, because I gave you the vertex. The vertex was right there. So vertex form is, as always, y equals a x plus 7 squared plus 2. Now you had to find a. The only way to find a is to have only one unknown number. To get one unknown number, you would have had to have an x and a y. But you didn't have an x and a y, but you did, because the y-intercept is 0, negative 145. So you can sub that in and figure it out. Negative 145 equaled a, 0 plus 7 squared plus 2. So that's negative 145 equaled 49a plus 2. Take away 2 from both sides. 49a equaled negative 147. A equaled negative 3. So your vertex form to get the whole 2 marks is y equals negative 3, x plus 7 squared plus 2. And that gets you your whole 2 marks. Any questions? Going once. Going twice. Going thrice. That was a long and uncomfortable silence, which I can only take to mean that you know exactly what you're doing, because nobody asked me. So when I give that question on the test on Tuesday, I will have 30 correct responses, correct? Because nobody asked me about it, which means you all know how to do it. Excellent. This one, I have the vertex again. It's the exact same question. Y equals a x minus 3 squared plus 5. But this time, I have a different way of writing the point, I know, but it's still the y-intercept, isn't it? So I still put them in. There's my x, there's my y. Negative 4 equals a, 0 minus 3 squared plus 5. Negative 4 equals 9a plus 5. Negative 9 equals 9a. A equals negative 1. Now, how do you get your full 2 marks here? You notice the graph has to open up or down. Since a is negative 1, that would open down. What would make it open up? Positive 1. So to get your whole 2 marks, you needed y equals plus or minus 1. You didn't need the 1. X minus 3 squared plus 5. If you put the 1 there, I'd still give you full marks anyway, because it had to open up and down. Up or down, I mean. Same thing here. It's the exact same question. Again, y equals a. I'm just going to fill it in now. 0 minus 5 squared. I should have filled in the y. No, should have filled it in. 6 equals a. Yo. Oh, no, I'd give you 1.5. I'm not cruel. A 0, no, sorry. 1 minus 0 squared plus 5, which is 6 equals a plus 5. And then a equals 1 again, but it has to open up and down. So it was y equals plus or minus, bracket, x plus 0, so just x. So I don't even need the bracket, squared plus 5. All those are worth 2 apiece. Any questions? Once, twice, thrice. I didn't want the long, uncomfortable silence that time because nobody's asking, so I'm trusting everybody can do it. Sweet! Oh, I can't wait to mark this test on Tuesday. Everyone's getting 100%. It's going to be awesome. Never had that happen before. Whew! 10. Still out of 2 marks. Do you have a vertex there? What is it? So it's y equals a x plus 3 squared minus 3, yes? Just laying down a beat while we wait for this to thaw. Hey, didn't really. Minus 3, yes? Now, I have a couple of choices. One, I could choose any point and sub it in, right? Or I could just count. I went over 1 and down -2, right? How far should I have gone down on a parabola? 1. But since I doubled that, a must be -2, right? So this is y equals -2 x plus 3 squared minus 3. Yeah? Yeah. What about over here? Do I have a vertex? What is it? 0, -3. So it's y equals a x minus 0, which is just x, squared minus 3, yes? And again, I can check. I went over 2, and I went down a half. Ooh, yikes, that's weird. I went over, the scale is weird on this one. I went over 1 and down a half, right? So I'm going to use that point right there, which is over 1, 2, 3, which is 1.5, and down 1. Yuck. But when I go all the way over to here, which is 2 over, I went down how far? No, 3 down to 4 is 1. How far should I have gone down when I went over 2? I should have gone down 4, but I only went down 1, which is 1/4, right? So my a had to be -1/4 x squared minus 3. Any questions on that one? 10 and 11 are 2 marks each, yeah. Everything on that page was 2 marks each. Giving you a score of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 10. Yeah, yeah? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, how many methods do you have to solve 3? Wait a minute. Wrong page. Why are we starting with 3? How many methods do you have to solve this one? It's in vertex form, right? So does that have everything we need? Everything's worth 1, yeah? What's the vertex? 5, 10. 1 mark. What's the axis of symmetry? X equals 5. 1 mark. What's the range? Does the graph go up or down? Down. So the y's have to be less than or equal to what? 10. Brilliant. Is it a max or a min? It's a max at y equals 10. Excellent. Then we graph it. Notice I didn't give you a... there's a word. Axes. Thank you. I didn't give you axes because you could put them anywhere you wanted. Since the vertex was 10, as long as you could go up 10, you were fine. So I'm going to put it there. Doesn't matter where you put it. Over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. As long as you went up 10. And what was the stretch? -3. So when I go over 1, how far down do I have to go? 3. 1, 2, 3. And when I go over 2, how far down do I go? 12. So there's 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4. So your graph has to be long and skinny. State the Y-intercept. What is the Y-intercept? That is when x is what value? 0. Every Y-intercept is 0, y. Yes? And you have an equation, yes? And that x value for which you seek is 0. So what do you put in for x? 0. So y equals -3, 0 minus 5 squared plus 10. 5 squared is 25, times -3 is -75. -75 plus 10 is -65. Yes? For 1 mark there. And the x intercepts exactly. Which means, are you allowed to break out your calculator? No. Do I want to see any decimals? No. What are every x-intercept? X, 0, yes? So that value is a y value, right? So I have to do 0 equals -3 x minus 5 squared plus 10, yes? How do I solve that algebraically? Couple of things I could do here. Could I expand this, distribute the 3, get it into standard form, and then use the quadratic formula? Would that have been allowed? Yes or no? Yes. Or I could do algebra from here. 10 comes over. -10 equals -3 x minus 5 squared. Now what? Divide by -3. You can't move it over because this is multiply. So I'm going to have 10 thirds equals x minus 5 squared. Now what? Square root both sides. So the root of 10 thirds equals x minus 5. What do I need to remember about this root now? It's plus or minus. Now what do I do with that 5? Move it over. 5 plus or minus the root of 10 thirds equals x. There's your answer. Now, that answer makes me this happy. I don't have green hair. I have gray hair. That happy. Is there a way you can write this from your second unit that would make me this happy? It looks exactly like me. Exactly. Can anybody fix that up so I'm actually happy with it? Super happy. Because I would be super happy if you got there, but I'm talking super happy. Like, you know when the Hulk says you wouldn't like me when I'm angry? Right? That level of happiness compared to Hulk's level of anger. So like in Ragnarok when he saves the universe, which kind of bugs me about the Hulk, he was never supposed to be what he is in those movies. Huh? No, I know that. It bothers me. The Hulk was never supposed to be indestructible. As a matter of fact, Wolverine in like the 80s almost killed him. The only reason he didn't was because Wolverine took pity on him. Anyway, that's another story for another day. Yes, Wolverine and the Hulk fought in the 80s. The very early 80s. Might even have been the late 70s. Nobody can fix that up? Of course, you would rationalize the denominator, because this is actually 5 plus or minus the root of 10 over the root of 3, which you would then multiply root 3 by root 3 to get 5 plus or minus root 30 over 3. That would get that. If you care. I mean, if you don't want to look up at me while you're writing, while I'm marking your test and see me going like this, then don't bother. So that page is out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Mr. Myers.
What?
So root 30 times root 3 times root 10.
Oh, sorry, root 30. Thank you. I was too busy drawing this drawing that doesn't look anything like me. I don't know, everything was worth 1, so it's out of 7. What about this one? Is it in, what form is it in? So what does it give us? The roots. The roots of this equation are where? -2 and 2, 4, 6. Positive 6. Right? So if I want to graph it, I need a vertex. Yeah, where's the vertex? It's right in the middle. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. There it is. The vertex x is 2. Right? So the Vx equals 2. What do I do with that number? Sub it in up here. What's 2 plus 2? What's 2 minus 6? What's 4 times negative 4? Negative 16. What's half of negative 16? Negative 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So my graph now just has to connect nice smoothly to there. There's my graph. Vertex, 2, negative 8 for the second mark. Y-intercept. What's the y-intercept when x equals what? When x equals what? 0. Y equals 1/2, 0 plus 2, 0 minus 6. 2 times negative 6 is negative 12 times 1/2 is negative 6. There's your third mark, making that page out of 10. Any questions there? Going once. Going twice. Going thrice. Sweet. I can't wait for Tuesday. It's going to be awesome. I know, right? Because everybody can do all of these questions. Spectacular. What are my options here? I have 2. What are my 2 options here to get vertex form? Pardon me? You could do negative b over 2a would get me my vertex x, and then what would you do with that? You'd sub it in. What's the other option? Starts with a C, ends with an E, has complete the square in the middle of it. Complete the square. Do I care which one you do? Do I care? How many people completed the square? Excellent. How many people did VX? Excellent. Not every hand went up. Interesting. Apparently there's another method of which I am not aware. I would like for that, all those people that didn't put their hand up to show me what they did to get the right answer. Because when I ask for the marks on this, a bunch of you are going to say you got perfect, but a bunch of you didn't put your hand up. So I don't really know how you could get perfect without doing one of these two methods and not put your hand. I wonder, what could be the cause of that? I don't know. I guess I'll just go on and see. I feel like doing this one today. So the Vx equals 9, not negative 9, over negative 2, which is negative 4.5 if you have to work with decimals. Many of you don't like working with fractions, so many of you like working with decimals. So then you take that and you put it back in up there, which is kind of yucky, right? Because it's still decimals. But what you end up with is y equals x yeah.
On the test, if you have a question like this, it seems like we did the equation wrong, but like we graphed it.
You then graph it correctly?
Yeah.
I take it all into account. Have no fear. They're two different skills. X plus 4.5 squared. And it seems to me, I seem to remember it being as 2.25. And the stretch factor was negative 1. I believe it was positive 2.25. Yeah? Okay. So the vertex for the first point, negative 4.5, positive 2.25. Would I also accept negative 9 halves and 9 fourths? Of course I would. As a matter of fact, I would prefer that. But what? X equals, what's the equation of the vertex of symmetry? What's the equation of the axis of symmetry? Negative 4. Yeah, the vertex of symmetry. Sounds like the name of a bad band. It's pretty funny, guys. Yeah. The range, since it's negative, the y must be less than or equal to what? 2.25. That's a max at 2.25 when you graph it. Now, graphing these is tricky. I like to graph these with an appropriate scale. So I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, and that would be 1. Picking up what I'm putting down? You don't have to do it this way. That's just the way I would do it. Then going upwards, I got to get up to 4.5. I'm not going to get there if I go in quarters, am I? So I'm going to go up in halves. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4.5. So I would go out to 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. There's 2.25. There's 4.5. But again, I don't really care how you graph it as long as you show me that you've graphed it. Now, here is something that bothers me. A great many of you on your test on Tuesday are going to put a dot at the vertex. You're going to recognize that it's negative, and then you're just going to do this. Am I going to give you marks? No, because what does that prove to me? That proves to me you know that it opens downwards. Is that all the information you have from this graph? No. You know that it's got to go over 1, down 1, right? Now, a great many of you will say, but Mr. Myers, you have this scaled weirdly. Yeah, I do. So going over 1 is actually 4 steps, isn't it? On my scale, the way I've drawn it, right? So I would go over 1, 2, 3, 4. And how far is down 1? 2 steps, right? Everybody with me? So on my scale, and then when I go down 2, 1, or when I go over 2, which is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I got to go down 1, 2, 3, 4. So for my graph, it's going to look like that, based on my scale and where I put my axes. Hint, hint, I will not be giving you axes on your test, because when you have to put the axes in, that proves to me you actually know how to graph. Okay? Okay. Graph the function, that's worth 1. State the y-intercept. What is the y-intercept? You don't even need to do any work because it's right there. Because it's when x equals 0, negative 18. And state the x-intercepts exactly. What would you do to find the x-intercepts exactly? What are your options? It's all written on page 110. It was in standard form. Could you use the quadratic formula? Yes. Is it factorable? Yes, so you could use factoring. Is it from slope, from vertex form? Could you put in y equals 0 and solve it? Yes, and the answers are, I believe it is negative 6 and negative 3. For 1 mark, making that page out of 1, 2, it's out of 8. I think. No, it's out of more than 8. A, B, C. No, it's out of 8. Making the whole thing out of 8 and 10 is 18. Another 10 is 28. And another 12, I think. No, that first page was out of 8. So 16 and 20. It's out of 36, yeah? When will you report that mark to me? On the test, which is what day? Tuesday, because it's second block. So you'll have had a day to wake up. Which what? Yeah, we're going to do that right now. Huh? I know. You ready for it? Test reminders, page 110. You've done it. Yeah, I know. So there is no need for any reminders out of your book because it's all on page 110. What I will give you a reminder of is graphing calculator if you're going to use it. When do I want to use my graphing calculator? Anytime I got decimals. Negative 4.9 t squared plus 22t minus 27. I got decimals. I want that graphing calculator out. On your graphing calculator, you need to know window, x min, x max, y min, y max. You want to be able to know how to find zeros. You want to be able to know how to find maximum, minimum. Where do I find all of that? That's all in second calc. Aight? And you need to remember this. An equation can be in standard form, and that same equation can exist in factored form, and it can also exist in vertex form, and they're all the same equation. Have a good long weekend. See you on Tuesday morning.